What's going on, folk? In this video, we're gonna talk about 5 mods to do to your car if you're a beginner drifter. This is for the guys that are just getting into it, that are just starting out for the first time and not sure like what direction to go, because there's a lot of ways you can go and you see a lot of things on the internet. There's a lot of opinions, including my own, obviously. You're watching this because, you know, we got the opinions going, you know what I'm saying? And as somebody that has a few drift cars slash, you know, hot boy cars, whatever you want to call it, you know, stuff like that. My R32 is my very first drift car. You know, I have my wife's Z, have my black R35. Got a few cars here and I've had a lot of other cars along the way. So let's talk about some things right after the intro. Boom.
The tables turned really back one time. Okay, Tony Touch.
It's so tremendous.
Tony Touch. Yo, I be the mic smoker.
All right, so check me out. First things first. There's tons of ways to build drift cars, and everything is going to be preference. If you ask a professional driver what your first mod should be, it's gonna be a lot different than what me, a street driver, is gonna tell you, right? So, and even if you ask 10 professional drivers, they will probably all tell you different things, but you know, maybe also similar things at the same time. So, a little bit confusing, I get it, so let's just stick with the real. All right, first things first. So for me, number one thing to buy for your car, most important, right here, bucket seat. This right here, you want for yourself, okay? The reason why these are important, let me show you. Low horsepower cars, you're first drifting, don't get me wrong, you don't have to have a bucket seat, right? You're just now learning how to drift. You're just like getting the car sideways and this and that. However, here's the problem. All right. Don't mind my little CD case, you know what I'm saying? Because I got a CD player, you know, my CD case. Anyways, check me out. Put this up here. This towel, so that way the sun doesn't kill this seat. So you have a standard seat. If we look carefully, we see it's got like little light bolsters, you know what I'm saying? This is so that way all size people can get inside here and get in and out easily. It's soft, as you can see. You know what I mean? So you could roll in and out of this no problem, right? So when you're drifting and you start to get a little bit better and a little bit better, right? You will actually start to end up using your legs on the door panels and the center console. What does that look like? Let me show you, hold on. Now I got my racing shoes on. Hold up, Wody. I got my racing shoes on, so, you know, we out here. So let me close this door. Damn, that was a little light. So check me out. So you're drifting in the car. Obviously this car is right-hand drive, but so you're drifting, right? You throw the car into a corner. Now you don't realize it, but once you start getting the hang of drifting and you start drifting more and more and more, and especially when you start doing higher speed drifting, you're getting thrown around the car. Now you have a seatbelt on, right? Okay, cool, that's good, right? But now you won't realize it, but you'll actually start using your leg to hold you against the door panel, and when you go the other way, you use your leg to hold you against the console. Now, at low speed drifting, that's not the end of the world. However, when you have a bucket seat, let's go into that. Hold up, let's shout it. When you got a bucket seat, pretty sure you know where this is going already, but I'm gonna take you for a ride anyways. Well, I'm not taking you for a ride in the car, but you see how much harder it was for me to get in this seat just now? Now, I'm planted, right? I'm sitting inside of these two channels, and now I'm like this. Boom, I'm stuck, I'm in. My shoulders also are now more planted in the seat. The importance of this bucket seat is that, again, you throw your car into the corner, now you are inside the seat here, right? Plus, you're no longer trying to support your body weight up like this, because guess what? My leg can't even really reach the dashboard here anyways. And when I close the door, I can't even reach it here. Why? Because my legs are already tucked inside the seat. So that's why I say seat is probably the most important because it's the first mod you can do that's also probably the cheapest and easiest, right? You can buy a seat from NRG or a Bride seat, or I mean, depending on budget, of course. Hold up, let me get out. There's tons of seats available. In my opinion, I don't think there's a wrong seat when it comes to a, you know, like a bucket seat. It comes down to preference. And if you're just starting out, I wouldn't get too caught up in it. I would start with something simple like an NRG seat. And I say that because it's a very comfortable seat and they have a good price, and you're getting overall quality wise, a really good amount of, like, you're getting a good quality seat for your money, you know what I mean? And they mount easy, but the only thing you have to be careful about with those seats is they make like small, medium, and large, is the top bolsters in the type of vehicle you have. Quick example, I can't open the door because the alarm's gonna go off like crazy, but see if we can see through the windshield real quick. So I got my wife Z here, right? We have a purple NRG seat in here. It's hard to see. However, we bought a large seat first by accident because we didn't really know that they made different size seats, and the top of the seat wouldn't close with the door panel. We would have had to have removed the door panel because the side of the bolster kept touching the door panel. Went down to a medium seat, no longer touches, everyone's happy. You know what I mean? So when you look for seats, different cars, they're shaped different inside. All seat companies will have measurements of how wide things are. Just take a look at those, you know what I'm saying? Boom, whatever. I like Bride seats. I got a Bride seat in there, the blue Bride seat. I actually have 2 blue Brides for this. I have 2 blue Brides for that. That car's got a Bride seat in it. And my Civic has a Bride seat, which is on the trailer because I broke it again. So check me out. Boom. That's where we're at. Number 1, seat. Boom. All right. So this brings us to modification number 2. Right here, shouty 2. All right. I find this to be something that's really important only because it's for consistency and helping you learn, and you can take it super far. You ready for this? A welded diff. Damn. Something that's cheap, relatively easy, depending on mechanical skills. Somebody you know got a welder. You can do it wrong for sure. So, you know, make sure somebody can, you know what I'm saying, do whatever. So the reason I say welded diff is because some factory cars have LSDs in them. Like actually the 350Z actually has a factory LSD in it. And that car, when I first got it, my R32, that car also had a factory LSD. The LSD in that car is trash. The LSD in this car, actually pretty good considering we're actually still using it today because the car came with it, and well, we haven't had a real issue with the LSD in this car, which I'm actually really impressed with. Back in the day, when I had my G37, that car had the factory VLSD in that, and man, like, as long as you were really on the throttle and committed, it worked really good, but there was plenty of times where it would unlock and straighten you out or kind of get funny. This is why I say welded diff's the best, because especially if you're just learning, there's no better consistency than a welded differential. What is a welded diff? Welded differential is when you weld the gears together in the back of the diff to where this wheel and that wheel are always traveling the same distance. So something you don't realize is when you turn, let's see, I got a lot of tire marks here on the floor. Let's see if I can find a decent set. You can see I have a lot of tire marks like this, right? If you're turning to the right, the inside is going a shorter distance than the outside. Even though it's by a little bit amount, no matter what, whichever direction you turn, left to right, the inside's traveling a shorter distance, the right side's traveling a longer distance. This is why cars usually are open diff. Non-sports cars have an open diff in them. That's the one-wheeler, and it's just taking you around and getting you where you need to go. It's the same thing for, you know, trucks, SUV. Well, a lot of trucks have LSDs in them, but a lot of vehicles are actually one-wheel peel, and you know, that's great and all for economy and like whatever else, but for riding and doing what you want to do, I'm saying welded diff. Now, downsides of welded differentials. versus, let's just say, a proper LSD. If you can afford an LSD, by all means, purchase one. However, I say, before you spend if you can find it cheap, probably $600, which I'll be impressed if you find one for $600. Typically, I've seen LSDs, aftermarket ones that are actually working properly, typically anywhere from $800 to $1,200, depending on the brand, the type, and the model car you have. A couple, different variances, right? Welded diff. You can pull your own diff out, take it to a buddy. You guys can weld the gears together, look it up first, don't ruin your diff. You know what I'm saying? And you can have it back in your car same day. When you reseal it, let that dry before you add fluid, typical, right? But the welded diff, we'll go with some positives and negatives real quick. Positives are, and this is the biggest one for me, the biggest positive is you will never have a more consistent drive than a welded diff. Why? Because both wheels are doing the exact same thing at the exact same time. Now, with that being said, an LSD is better because you can adjust LSDs with shims and all kinds of different things. Some have shims, some have clutches. There's different types of LSDs out there, but for the most part, LSDs, they can work better overall in the long run. You know what I mean? So, and LSDs are better for a street-driven car because welded diff in a street-driven car eats up tires faster, and also in the rain, you kind of got to be on your P's and Q's in the rain, especially if your tires aren't good. You know what I mean? Because you'll come out sideways and hit a bump, and then that's it. Especially if your tire's a little bit bald, you got no chance. You know what I mean? I've spun out a few times with a welded differential in my R32, and it's a very uncomfortable feeling that you can't do anything about anything. You know what I mean? So, anyways, the welded differential, it's another cheap modification that gets your foot in the door much sooner. And then once you have driven enough with it and you feel good about driving the car, you're feeling consistent, you're feeling better and better and better, you can then now go, okay, I'm ready to maybe commit to an LSD. Drive if you have a buddy with an LSD, the same type of car, an aftermarket LSD, not a factory one. Take it for a ride, and if you like it a lot, put an LSD in your car. If you don't like it, don't put one in there, because welded diffs are really cheap, really easy to do. So, number two is welded differential. All right, shouties. 3. You heard? 3. Ready for this one? This is gonna be crazy. Clutch. Gotta have a clutch, shorty. There's gonna be some of you out there that have an automatic car. Can't really help you there. Some automatic cars, they make good power, whatever, but you are going to want a clutch. You know why? Because some cars are underpowered. You know what I'm saying? Not to mention, you're gonna have a lot of start and stops, aggressive start and stops. Gonna be some clutch slipping, this and that. Kung Fu shift, first and second gear. You're gonna have plenty of those as you're learning, as you're getting better and better and better. You don't have to go ultra gangster clutch. This car has an Agera Racing twin disc in it. This car does not need that much clutch, but it happened to be a good deal. That's what I got. Boom, tight. That car has an Agera single disc clutch in it, and that's a really good clutch for a JDM car, JDM motor, whatever the case is. It's an RB25 in here. This car has a potentially factory clutch. We're not exactly sure just yet, but it's still hanging on, making the power it's making at this moment in time, so whatever. I have an Agera single disc clutch for this car as well. You do not need to buy that extravagant of a clutch. This car had an eBay whole clutch kit that's like $250, right? It was a 6-puck disc, heavier pressure plate, and it came with the flywheel and a lighter weight flywheel, and it also came with a concentric slave unit, but it's their own concentric slave. So if you have a VHR swap, Ds don't have that, but HR VHR swap, if you're having one of those engines, got to kind of watch out for that, because those cheap clutch kits, you have to use their concentric slave because of the size of the bearing face. But anyways, clutches are important because you're gonna wear out your factory clutch really fast. I do not care if you make low horsepower, you're going to end up using up the shit out of your clutch. That's it, that's all there is to it. So, having a clutch in your car also helps provide feedback for your transmission, your wheels and tires. If you have a factory stock, slippy, mushy clutch, when you go to initiate in the corner and you clutch kick it and it just slips the clutch instead of chucks the car sideways and continues momentum, you're gonna have a bad time. You know what I mean? So the clutch, again, you do not need to buy an extravagant clutch now. Just to give you like a frame of reference, the Orgera twin disc that's in this car, I think is brand new, $1,700 or $1,800. That is an excessive clutch. This is a special car. For me, that's fine. For this car, it's worth it. For this car and my R32, I have the Orgera clutches because again, these are Japanese cars, and the SR20 or the RB25s. You know, even if I had like a 2JZ car, I would still buy that type of clutch for them because you're getting a really good clutch system, clutch kit that's used. These are used clutches, and they last a really long time. They hold really good power, and if you damage them, you can rebuild each individual section. So I really like that a lot. However, even used, they're typically around $500. If you find a good deal, maybe $400. If you find one in really good shape, probably $700 or $800. So they're expensive new. However, like I said, the eBay clutch I used, I forget the name of the brand, but it was, like I said, their pressure plate, their 6-puck disc, sprung. I went with sprung. You can go unsprung. I don't like unsprung clutches because it's a lot of shock and a lot of aggressiveness in your transmission, which just transfers right down the line to your drive shaft, to your differential, to your axles. Not great, you know what I mean? So a clutch is important because you do not want to be slipping, you want to be gripping, you know what I mean? And the more clutching you driving, I promise you, as you progress and you get better and better, more and more techniques you'll learn in the future, sometimes you rely on the clutch. If you make low horsepower, let's give an 8086 Corolla for example. They make up all of like 60 horsepower because they make nothing. Typically those drivers that drive those cars kamikaze style never lift their foot off the gas, and they only use the clutch to adjust speed for the wheels. And their foot's always on the floor because it makes no power. It's a different style of driving. However, you're heavily relying on the clutch. When you have a heavier car like this versus that, this car probably weighs under 3,000 pounds. I'd say actually this car right now in this current form probably weighs 2,700 pounds, 2,600 pounds. It weighs nothing. This car weighs probably closer to 3,400, give or take. Not exactly sure how much that car weighs. Heavier cars, you're really gonna want a clutch because again, with a heavier clutch, especially when you start doing wheels and tires and stuff like that, heavier wheels and tires require more from you, require more from the clutch. Every clutch kick you take, everything you do is just more and more and more. You want something that's gonna take the abuse, take the heat. You know what I mean? That's another thing, that's another aspect that I don't wanna get too far into because I'm trying to keep this more for the beginner drivers, right? The guys that are just starting out. So, clutches are important, and that's how we're gonna wrap that one up. So number 3, clutch. All right, thank you for sticking along, you heard me? Because we're on number 4, shorty. So, number 4, tires. What are we talking about? Tires, right? Boom, we talking about gangster tires, we're talking about not gangster tires. We're talking about gangster tires, and then we're talking about not gangster tires. That's right, I said the back of the tires ain't gangster. Not gangster, not gangster. Real, hold on. Let me show you what real gangster tires look like. Let me come back up on this thing. Damn, gangster. You know what I mean? Tires are really important. Here's why, right? Now, back in the day when I used to drift the R32 when I was first learning, when I tell you I had 4 different tire brands on each corner, and even though the fronts were the same size and the rears were the same size, as you learn more about tires, you will come to learn every tire manufacturer, even though it's the same size, they will be different widths and they will be different heights. And even in the same manufacturer, different models will also be different widths and different heights. When I was first learning to drift the R32 back in 2000, and I'm pretty sure it was 10, man, I tell you like this, that car would be on 4 different tires. I'd have 2 of the front same size tires, 2 of the rear same size tires, and let me tell you like this, I'd throw the car in the corner one way and be gripping, and throw the car in the corner the other way and the car would be a pure ice skates. Made absolutely no sense. Absolutely no sense, right? So tires are really, really important, you know what I mean? For those of you starting out, you do not need to buy gangster ass tires. I'm gonna tell you that straight up right here, right now. When you're learning, you're trying to do first gear corners, second gear corners, you do not need gangster tires. You need a decent tire. You do not have to break the bank. You do not have to go crazy budget. You do not need to buy some Toyo R888s. You are not an FD driver. I'm not an FD driver. Relax, you know, just relax, okay. What you need is a decent tire, probably in the 300 tread wear range in the front. And for the rear, because you're gonna learn to drift, 400 tread wear, maybe 500 tread wear, cool. Different tires are going to behave different ways. So I recommend that whatever your front tire size is, the back tires, if you're starting out, I say just go small, right? If you're gonna run, we'll give you an example, the 240. If you're gonna drive this car, a 225 in the front and probably a 225 in the rear, right? This 240 is currently making probably 320 horsepower. So really this would need at least a 255, 265 tire, right? Maybe a 285 because it's got some camber in it. But the consistent part is your front tires need to match the same brand, the same 225s or 255s, whatever the case is. The rear tires need to match. They don't need to match the front tires. They need to match together. Because again, like I said, having different tires, different brands, different, you know, whatever, when you have 2 of the same front tires, your front end is consistent. When you have 2 of the same rear tires, your rear end is consistent. Now again, I don't want to get too much into the tires because like I said, different tire brands, we all know as you'll experience in the tire game, especially when you're learning to drift and you're going to buy a new set of tires or whatever the case is, the more you experiment with tires and the more you try to buy tires from, you know, let's just say eBay, for example, you will see fluctuations. You will see specific tire brands be available and then you can't buy them at all. And then these tire brands will be available and then you can't buy those. And then these tire brands will be available. They come and go in waves, and then out of nowhere, the tire you learn to drift on disappears altogether and it's no longer existing, right? So in my opinion, I say start with a 300 treadwear front tire. That way it's got a decent amount of grip for a normal tire. So you have a decent feedback. Anything under 300 treadwear is typically like a race tire. I don't recommend those at first because you're trying to have the car at a certain balance, right? So you want a little bit less grip in the rear, in my opinion, because you're learning to drift. You want the car to be able to step out on you easier, but you want a good controlled front. So also with that, weight of your vehicle plays a big role in tire sizing, right? So for the 240, for example, again, this car probably weighs 2,700 pounds. It's fully gutted right now. It's pretty much all fiberglass. It's a steel door and a roof practically at this point, right? And it's got an aluminum block motor. There's no KA in the SR. I mean, you know, there's no KA, there's an SR20 in here. So it's like, this is a lightweight vehicle. A 225 in the front, no problem. I forget, that's exactly what size that is, a 225. 225 in the front of this car, good size because the whole chassis is lightweight. Now, let's get into the heavier chassis. My black R35 weighs 3,400 pounds. My girl Z probably weighs 3,200, maybe 3,350-ish because it does have a back half cage. God knows how much his wing weighs, but I know it's a lot. We have the body kit on here too. The quarter panels are still in the car, just trimmed lightly. So this car's got weight to it. Also, I think a factory Z weighs right around 3,200 pounds. So this, we'll call that 3,200 pounds. For over 3,000 pound cars, my opinion, I say a 245 front tire is a good width tire to go with on, let's say, anywhere from an 8-inch wide wheel to a 9.5-inch wide wheel. This is a 19 by 9.5 with a 245 tire. Now this car has a gangster front tire with a 200 tread wear. That's going to be a little bit different because I do more extreme driving in this car, and I'm asking a lot of my front end because I personally drive with my front end so I can keep my back end out more, right? This car here is going to be a little bit different. This car is going to be a hot boy car. As you can see, I got the wheels up front. I'm still building the wheels in the rear. This whole chassis is lighter. I don't need that wide of a tire, and I do not need that much grip up in the front because up in the front, it does not weigh a lot, right? That car, the Black R35, weighs a lot because one, it's a big car. Two, the transmission 6-speed, so it weighs a lot. The engine's a V6 motor, right? All big, right? We're just big everything. Plus, the wheels are heavy. It has huge brakes. This car has small brakes. It has a lightweight motor. The chassis is a lot smaller. There's a lot less steel. Pretty much the whole front end's fiberglass. So this weighs less. This car, the R32, I imagine at its very current form probably weighs 2,800 pounds, maybe 2,900. So she tiptoes that line. With that being said, I have a 225 front tire on this. The reason why I have it on such a skinny tire on this car is because this car is kind of in between my 240 and my Black R35. This car has an iron block 6-cylinder in it, so that's way heavier. We have 3-piece wheels. This car is going to be caged sooner than later. This car still has a ton of steel left on it. There's a lot of fiberglass in it, but so she's a little bit heavier overall. Now, being that she starts tipping the scales a little bit further and the front end is heavy, right? Because it has an iron block 6-cylinder. These are the gangster tires, a 200 tread wear, 225 tire. So this is in between a lightweight chassis, middleweight chassis, heavyweight, you know what I mean? The heavyweight on the 245, the middleweight on a 225, but a tire that has more grip available. And as you do more tires and as you experiment with more tires, this is a long segment about tires, but tires are kind of really important also. I mean, everything's important, but front tires and rear tires are literally going to determine if you have too much front grip and you go to throw the car in the corner, the front end is going to want to pull back around. If you have too much rear grip, when you throw the back of the car in, it's going to want to throw the front around if you don't have enough power to keep the back going. So when you're first learning, having an unbalanced setup like that is not good. Also, if you overgrip the rear and the front, if you're in the corner this way and you go to transition this way, you have a good chance of having this feedback in your steering wheel of it feels very numb at times because what's going to happen is the back is going to push the front end forward. So even if you're sideways one way and you go to do sideways the other way, the front end might slip, right? Some drivers want front end slip because of the way they like to drive. I like a little front end grip because of the way I like to drive. I'm not a professional driver. I'm not a competitive driver. I like to drive on the street. I like to drive on tracks, and I like to drive wild with style. You know what I mean? So for me, I like the back of the car to hang out more, so I prefer a little bit more front grip because I know I can throw the car in. Now with more front grip too, if you throw the car in kind of hard and you have an angle kit, that's plus angle kit, if I go too far at the back, I know I can cut my front end wheel forward more and bring my front end more back around sooner. I like the feedback that I get from my front end. When you don't have feedback in your front end, I personally don't like that, but there's tons of drivers out there that do like that. Not necessarily less feedback, but they like their front end to slip around a bit because the way they want their car to travel. So let's do a double middle weight, right? So we got, again, the 240, 225, the middle weight, a 225 with a 200 tread wear tire versus a 300 tread wear. There's a big difference in tires right there. Heavyweight girl with a 245. Now this girl, because she's a 3,200 pound car, this car has a 245 tire in the front and the feedback feels fantastic, but this is still a standard 300 tread wear tire. This one, we have these weird Petlos VTOX tires, surprisingly work really, really well. That's a 9.5 inch wheel with a 245, a little bit of light stretch. And another thing about tires is you can adjust grip also with tire pressure, right? So I like my steering wheel to work kind of easy, but I want tire grip. So my current drift car, the Black R35, runs about 40 PSI on the front tires where, let's see, yeah, it runs 40 PSI on the tires. If I wanted more grip out of my front end, let's just say I'm going to a big track where I'm doing 80 miles an hour on the corner and I don't feel like I have enough grip in the front, I can air down my tires because now it has more grip. I widen the patch a little bit and I increase the grip in the track width. So there's many things you can do, but for a beginner, I recommend in the front a 300 tread wear tire. In the back, you can use a 300 tread wear tire also, but probably 400, maybe 500. You're gonna wanna burn them up. Some tires will last longer than others. The only way to find out is to try to go on YouTube and find out what the best tires are. You can watch professional drivers, but a lot of times professional drivers are running tires that cost a lot of money. Sometimes they run cheaper tires and they get good deals on tires, but sometimes those cheaper tires, because everyone's using them, they're available for 2 months and then the rest of the year they're not available. So you kind of have to get in where you fit in. So there's plenty of tires available. I do not recommend anything under a 300 tread wear tire. You're learning to drift and you want to have a good time for a long time. So number 4, boom, baby, tires. All right. Number 5, boom, right there. Now this one, I'm not gonna lie, I'm gonna call it number 5, but it could easily be down the line to me personally as like a 6 or like a 7, right? But at the end of this list, I'm gonna say a handbrake. Now, you don't need a gangster handbrake, you just need a handbrake that works. So what does a gangster handbrake look like? Well, a hydraulic handbrake where you can run either dual calipers, 1, 2, which is when you push your foot on the brake, this caliper and the front caliper work together, then the handbrake by itself pulls the second caliper. Cool. Or like a factory style, like say for example, the 240, perfect car. There's only one caliper in the back, and it's that little guy back there. I don't even know if you can see it, but one guy. When you yank the handbrake in here, it pulls that one guy. But also if you push the foot brake, it's still pushing this also, which is okay. Or like in my wife Z, this car has an inline hydro handbrake setup to where it goes from the master for the rears, goes from the master to the hydraulic handbrake to the rear caliper, which is that one guy back there. We'll talk about advantages and disadvantages about everything. Advantage. We'll start with the best. Right here. My opinion is the best. Not everyone runs this. Even actually professional drivers will run an inline hydraulic handbrake setup to save weight, or they got a lot of funky shit going on. So that's them boys. You heard me? We out here in the streets. So anyways, my personal opinion, dual calipers are the best. Why? Because if you push your foot brake and you hit your handbrake at the same time, if you have an inline brake system, inline hydro, if you push your foot in the brakes and then you yank the handbrake, your foot will get pushed back off of your brakes. So you will no longer be applying brakes to the front, you'll be just applying to the rear. And you will fight it back and forth if you're trying to push both at the same time. You cannot push both at the same time. It's foot brake or handbrake. So obviously with the dual caliper setup, if I'm coming in hot, let's say 80 miles an hour, and I'm trying to slow the car down and I'm balancing the front end and the rear end, and I got to keep balancing it back and forth, I can use the foot brake to slow the front and then the handbrake to adjust the rear as need be. So they don't conflict with each other. Obviously, if you push the foot brake, it'll still touch the brakes here and there, but now you have control over your front and your rear independently. If you want more out of the rear, you just pull the handbrake more. You need more of the front, you just stick your foot in the floor more. That's the advantage to having a dual caliper set up with a hydraulic handbrake. My wife's Z, the in-between, the medium, I don't know, we'll call it like high end, max end, top end, because it costs the most too. It ain't cheap because you have to buy a caliper adapter to run 2 calipers, plus the cost of 2 more calipers, and then whatever pads you're gonna use. The hydraulic handbrakes usually aren't cheap. They do make cheap ones. I recommend if you're gonna go hydraulic handbrake, you kind of spend money on something that is in decent shape, like good quality overall. An ISR handbrake is actually pretty damn good considering for the price. It's actually what's in this car here. And I know I wanna show it to you because I don't wanna open the door, but there's the hydraulic handbrake in this car, the inline handbrake setup. This car, like I said, if I pull the handbrake, I can't use the foot brake. If I use the foot brake, I can't use the handbrake. Now, with that, a lot of times you're either doing one or the other anyways, so it's not the end of the world, but you know, that's kind of how that thing goes, right? And again, different handbrakes have different hydraulic handbrakes, different hydraulic handbrakes will have different hydraulic master sizes. So that's something you want to look into. There's smaller sizes and larger sizes. The difference between them is when you go to pull your handbrake, I forget if it's larger or smaller, which one works which. It's been a long time since I looked into it, but if you would rather have it be easier to pull, but you're gonna pull longer distance, that's a certain size master for your hydraulic handbrake. If you don't mind it being firmer to pull, but have a shorter distance, that's a certain size hydraulic master, right? I like to pull less than more. I don't like to pull this big sloppy feeling. I don't like that sloppy feeling. Plus pulling far away, having to pull close, or let's just say the hydraulic handbrake is closer to your hand because it's up and you have to pull like this over here versus like just pulling short like that. So those are some things there. Factory handbrakes. Now, 2 styles, right? R32 and 240, perfect example. This car. Now, this is also probably why some guys don't care if it's single, if it's like an inline hydro system. Some people do care. If you started driving a 240, you probably won't care about having a dual caliper, right? We're gonna get into that here in a second. I think the reason why I prefer the dual caliper is because factory, the R32, when you pull the handbrake, well, it's hard to see, I know, but there's a single caliper, right? That's just single caliper back here, but inside the rotor are shoes like a drum brake. So when you pull the handbrake inside, those shoes are a brake inside. So your e-brake is separate from your foot brake. So where I learned to do long entries is on this car. And that is how I learned to go hauling ass into a corner, throw it in sideways, and then go, oh man, I need to slow the whole car down, or I need to slow the front down a little bit. If I slow the front down, I would just lightly tap the foot brake and the front end would start to come back and I go, oh, too much, pull the handbrake a little bit, and I would balance the car on its way into like long entries. So I learned to drift like that because that was my first drift car. A lot of people use a 240. When you pull the handbrake in a 240, it pulls the calipers right here, right there, bam. So when you pull the handbrake, it pulls those because inside the piston has like a screw to it, right? So when you pull it, it just does this, it bites, you release it, it does that, right? If you pull the handbrake and you hit the foot brake at the same time, it's all super brake. So it's not like it's separate between the two. The reason why I kind of didn't want to include the e-brake is because, in my personal opinion, when you're first learning to drift, you need to learn vehicle placement that matches your vehicle, your tires, your setup, and you need to learn car control. And a handbrake, how do I put this? A handbrake is a tool to help with car control, but when you're first learning to drift, you need to learn how to drift and how to maintain the proper speed for your horsepower, for your angle, for your tire setup, and everything else. So that's a fundamental basic that you don't really need a handbrake for. Like I said, you really should be learning how to put the car, like when you throw this car into this corner, okay, I gotta be doing like 40, right? Me personally, I'd never look at my speedo. I'm a drive-by feel driver. If I feel like I'm going the speed I need to go, I go, yep, I feel like I'm going fast enough. I throw the car into the corner, and then I feel with my body at that point in time, like, hey, yeah, or no, I should be going faster in this corner. You know what I mean? And there's other signs, okay, I shortchanged the corner, or no, I'm going off the edge, okay, I'm going too fast, too slow, whatever. And as you experiment with tires and everything else in the future, those things will change too. So whatever. Back at it. So with the handbrake thing, like I said, the reason why I didn't want to include it exactly is because when they first learn to use the handbrake, they start to use it like a crutch, right? The handbrake is a tool. If I'm tandeming behind somebody, you're gonna want a handbrake. You know what I mean? Because you're gonna need to constantly adjust the handbrake, or if your car is set up like your buddy's car the exact same way, there's a lot of times where you probably may not have to chase with the handbrake at all. But a handbrake is a tool to learn how to use. I recommend you learn to drive the car without a handbrake first, and then once you're able to link a full figure eight, once you're able to link corner to corner without a handbrake, then you should start learning to use the handbrake right after that. But you're gonna want a proper handbrake. If you have a handbrake like this and that, these cars have cables attached to the lever itself. You can stretch those cables. So with that being said, a new set of cables, in my opinion, is really important. They're not that expensive. And a set of brake pads in the rear, like this car, you're gonna have more aggressive brake pads. And those brake pads will, when you yank it, will actually bite and grab. They're gonna produce dust. They might be a little bit noisy, but that's kind of the trade-off you're gonna get for having brakes that bite, right? You need them to bite and lock up the wheels, especially when you have bigger and heavier wheels. You really want it to lock up. That car, same thing. For the drum pads, for the drum shoes that are in the back of this car, you're still gonna want an aggressive one, because when you pull the handbrake, again, same thing, it needs to be aggressive. Now, when you go hydraulic handbrake, because you're applying hydraulic force, and a lot of times you're having usually upgraded calipers, but you don't have to have big calipers like this car and that car have. You can have small calipers like this car has. Hydraulic force, you're applying more force overall. So with those, you can actually get away with running a lesser of a brake pad or a brake shoe or whatever. So you, like, for a matter of fact, let me give you an example. I forget what we have on this car, so I'll tell you about my car. Yeah, I really forget what's on that car. This car here has very, very large brakes on it. That's a 4-piston caliper on the front. These are dual piston calipers times 2. So I have, well, there's a lot of pistons back here, but these are dual piston calipers back here. So they are bigger already and they bite a lot. I have a really good hydraulic handbrake in this car. So when I yank that thing, it squeezes those really good. I actually have factory performance brake pads all the way around. They are all the same. I bought race brake pads for this car because I'm like, oh man, if I pull this handbrake, I want them things to lock up, because there's a 19 by 12 wheel. That's a 285 or 295 tire back here. That is a big, heavy wheel. I understand I have a big brake caliper, but I was worried that like maybe it's not gonna lock it up. I can assure you, the hydraulic handbrakes, they lock it up. You know what I mean? So you don't have to get a hydraulic handbrake. You just need to make sure that your handbrake works. A lot of times you'll find when you first get a car, especially an older one, it doesn't matter what it is, you're gonna yank that handbrake, and when you yank the handbrake, if you're going dead straight and you yank the handbrake and it locks them up, your handbrake's working pretty good. You'll find that if you do that and it'll slow the car down really fast, the handbrake works, but it doesn't lock it up like you need. However, the test about going straight, you're not locking your handbrake up going straight anyways. If you throw the car sideways, then pull the handbrake on the ones that don't quite lock up, you'll find a lot of times they'll lock up sideways. But you want a consistent handbrake, again, because consistency is key when you're first learning. So if you throw the car sideways and you hit that thing, she ain't locking up. It's just like having an LSD instead of a welded differential when you're first learning. If it's not consistent, you're not gonna be confident in the car, you're not gonna get sure, and your progression might be a little bit slower. When you have consistent things, you're going to the moon, baby. I mean, you know what I'm saying. So yeah. So handbrake, yeah, I'm gonna keep a handbrake number 5, but like I said, if you learn in a drift, first learn about your clutch control, your car control, your speed, your tires, all that stuff. Start small, and as you progress, you add the handbrake as a tool. It's not something I'm telling you to not do. I'm telling you to have a handbrake. What I'm telling you is start early and work your way in it. First thing you need to do, you're gonna do corners one direction, first gear corners. Then you're gonna do it the other direction. Then you're gonna get a little faster, then second gear corners. And as you get better, boom. The good thing about a handbrake that you need to make sure it works enough in general is if you throw the car into a corner too hard where you need to stop suddenly, check that handbrake up, you know what I mean? So boom, let's get to the conclusion. I know I've been talking for a while, but you here for the ride, Wody. All right, so those are the 5 things for beginning drifters, 5 mods for your car. I know I kind of talk a lot, but there's so much more to everything than just, oh, yeah, just this one thing. Yeah, that's all you need. It's like, no. If you notice, I said 0 about angle kit because you don't need one. You understand me? You're learning to drift. You need to learn car control. You need to learn balance. You do not need an angle kit. You do not need to put your wheels out 50 millimeters past your fenders on some giant spacers because you need more lock. You need to drive better. You know what I'm saying? Drive better, shorty. There will be people out there that disagree 100% with that statement. Oh, you should get an angle kit right away. Your driving will excel, in my personal opinion, by having an angle kit early on. You don't understand balance for the chassis and all these setup things that are, in my opinion, fundamental building blocks of just your drifting in general. If you're trying to jump to the end right away, don't get me wrong. If you have an angle kit, your poor driving will be saved by your angle kit. You understand? So no angle kit, 0 angle kit. If you buy a car that's already got one, great, fantastic. Adjust the lock stops on there to get way less lock. That'll help you learn balancing. That's gonna help you, oh shit, I threw the car too hard, you know what I mean? Or a bunch of other things. Now, like I said, I didn't add angle kit because, again, that's not a mod you need right now. You're just learning how to drift. One thing I do want to add. Now, I almost listed this as a mod because I find it extremely important, is your oil. Well, your oil is extremely important in your transmission fluid. Transmission fluid, you don't have to change that as frequently, but your oil, if you're gonna start beating up your car, you're gonna wanna put a heavier weight oil in it, especially if you're really gonna thrash it. You're gonna wanna put a heavier weight oil. What oil brand you use, completely up to you. If you look here, I have Royal Purple, I have Valvoline. These aren't oils, these are random things, you know what I mean? I use different oil for different applications, for different vehicles, for different reasons. I'm not telling you what to buy. However, off the shelf, 20W50 Valvoline VR1, pretty good way to go. That's an inexpensive performance oil that's gonna let you really kick the shit out of your car. And oil is probably the cheapest mod you can do. Buy a Canon oil filter, by the way. That's probably one of the cheapest mods you can do to your car to save your engine's life and your wallet. You keep popping motors. I mean, there's tons of reasons for blowing your shit up, but an oil is probably one of the cheapest insurances you can have. If you're drifting and it's hot outside, your engine's way hotter, and you keep demanding more and you're beating the shit out of it, oil is gonna go a long way. Now, if you have a drift event on Monday, change the oil Sunday, right before the event, the day before, or the day of, whatever. And you go drifting, right? Let's just say you have a drift event 2 months later and you daily drive the car, change your oil anyways. I don't care if the oil is good for 10,000 miles, save yourself so much effort, so much headache, just change your oil. If you can't remember the last time you changed your oil, change your oil. You know what I mean? That's such a simple little mod. That's not even a mod. It's just part of your maintenance. You know what I mean? But yeah, just do it. Just do it. Because I actually lost a motor one time. I actually lost an SR bottom end one time because I didn't change the oil. Because I'm like, oh, I just changed it. But I couldn't remember the last time I changed it. And then I had 2-day extravaganza back to back of really getting after the car, and that car was making 385 wheel, and I was really kicking the shit out of it, on top of the fact I didn't change my oil for 8 months and I daily drove the car. As you can see where that adds up, I lost a bottom end because of that. Very, very costly versus $50 oil change, maybe less, 30 bucks, 40 bucks, whatever. So that's something I definitely kind of want to add in there. You can call it number 6 if you'd like, because it's technically not a mod, it's more of like a maintenance thing. But yeah, if you want to keep your motor alive and keep your driving fun and go far, those are the top 5 things plus number 6 that I recommend. Because man, you're learning, you're trying to have fun, you're trying to have a good time. There's tons of opinions out there. You're gonna learn by doing it first. So, you know, watch videos, watch YouTube videos, and see what else is out there, see what everybody else says. Form your own opinions, form your own conclusions, test shit out. Nobody can tell you what you're gonna like. Drive other people's cars. See how they feel. See what horsepower feels like. You do not need horsepower. I can tell you this 3,400 pound car makes 300 horsepower with a V6. It is not powerful, and I don't care. You wanna know why? I know how to drive, generally speaking. Am I an FD driver? Of course not. Am I a pro driver? No. Am I a pro amateur driver? No. I'm a street driver. When you can wheel, you can drive whatever you want. There's just simple fact, right? Some cars are hard to drive, some cars are easy to drive. Some cars naturally have a better feeling than other cars, depending on what your preference is. There's tons of chassis out there. I'm not gonna tell you what to buy. I'm just giving you examples of what you can look forward to. You know what I mean? So if you have any questions in this video at any point in time, just throw them in the comments. I do read them. Hit me up, you know what I'm saying? Or you can DM me on Instagram. I don't really care, same thing. But YouTube, you're already on here. You might not just throw it in there. Oh, what about this? Or how about that? Trust me, I check in, you know what I'm saying? So you can check in and you can check it out, you know what I mean? So yeah, these mods are not the end all be all. If you ask somebody else, they might tell you, oh, you gotta get an angle kit and you gotta get this. Listen, you don't have to buy anything, to be honest with you, right? These are the mods that I say to do first. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That is the kind of the direction I say to do, only because I feel like that's the best way to go for when you're first learning, you're first starting out, right? If you go back in the olden days, you can watch the Drift Bible by Keiichi Tsuchiya, which is considered to be the father of drifting. And he's got an old way of drifting because the video is really old. Check it out. It's got some really good information in there. Yeah, if you haven't watched it, give it a shot. It'll help you be able to go into a parking lot and get familiar with your car anywhere, like almost anywhere. So it's good stuff to learn. So you got a lot of good information there, like I said. But if you have like a 350Z and it's bone stock, if the clutch works and it's not dead and you can beat it up, do the oil change and just start driving. And as time goes on, you're gonna have to buy tires, you're gonna have to buy things, you're gonna wanna buy coilovers, you're gonna wanna buy wheels, you're gonna wanna buy this, you're gonna wanna buy that. Again, suspension, if you noticed, I didn't mention suspension. you can drift on factory suspension just fine. The cars will work pretty damn good. That's why I didn't include suspension. Suspension is for when you want to go to the next level up. So you're kind of already past the beginning phase. That's why I did not include that in this also. Suspension is very important because that's gonna help determine how your car's gonna start to behave and among other things. But again, this is just beginner drivers. This is not like the next step past that. This is just number one, how do I mod my car for drifting? I just started today. You know what I'm saying? This is the video for you guys. So if you enjoyed this video, cool, holler at your boy. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, and if you're a fan of what's going on, what you see here, subscribe to the channel and check in, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. That's the top 5 things that I say for beginning drivers. And if you don't like it, say something, little baby, you know what I'm saying? Also, with all else being said, just remember to stay sucker free.